The federal government's directive to peg the age of West African Examination Council (WAEC) and National Examination Council (NECO) candidates at 18 years has sparked concerns among stakeholders. The National Association of Proprietors of Private Schools (NAPS) and the Nigerian Union of Teachers (NUT) have expressed concerns that the policy may lead to delaying and denying some students access to higher education. However, the Academic Staff Union of Universities (ASUU) has backed the policy, stating that children should follow the standard academic progression and not be rushed into university.
The policy aims to ensure that students are emotionally mature and prepared for university. But critics argue that it may not be realistic and could lead to legal challenges. Joining us is an education development expert and the CEO of Team Masters Limited, Rotimi, Eyitayo. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Mr. Eyitayo, can you hear us? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Yes, we can. We seem to have a struggle with the connection, but we'll see how it works. Quickly share with us, your views on this new directive, and of course, the age of maturity of a child, before they are, legal enough to get into university or to write, the WAEC exams.
All right, thank you very much. My perspective is that I think that this policy coming at this point in time might not be an effective one due to different situations. As we all know that we have a lot of numbers and statistics to actually play with, thinking about what happens in between you having students who are out of school in terms of post-secondary education, and then the population that sits for the senior school certificate exam, and also the population that writes JAM. We're talking about millions of students, and pretty much I think that the gap in between writing WAEC and waiting for probably the next 2 years, over the average age of 16 years before they become 18 to be able to get into university, is something we need to look at again. The society in itself might not be too mature enough to be able to have that wait time. And so these are many factors that I think that execution of this policy might need a little bit a rethink, maybe staggered in itself, and then begin to implement step by step, or give a notification for a minimum of maybe 2-3 years to regularize and get people prepared. That's what I think.
But is it even a necessary policy? Yes, we know that part of the explanation is that it's not a new policy, it's the implementation that they want to kickstart now. What is the rationale behind this policy? Is there really an age to determine maturity, especially in a country where we say that students cannot get into university until they're 18, but can get married as young as 13 and 14?
Yes, that's a very good point you've made. Maturity is very relative and also subjective, especially with the world we are living in now, where we are having the age of achievement keeps shrinking by the day. I think that if a child is able to have what we call self-awareness, a child is able to have ability to pursue academic excellence, a child is able to take care of himself, that in itself has some indices towards maturity. The question would now be that if we're going to really make education global and the practice of education, we need to understand that maybe the model of education, especially in Nigeria, my person, there are children who are actually 15 and 16, and they have capacity of productivity, they have capacity of maturity, even than those who are 22. And they have the skills that they are able to even kickstart several things. I think we need to watch the way we label things and create stereotypes out of policies, because at the end of the day, the goal is not to just have policies, to make sure that these policies are quite functional and enabling for the children, for the society, and the economy at large.
Yeah. I mean, also, I've seen the response of the Nigerian Union of Teachers. Their concerns, of course, are that the government is focusing on the minor things, and ignoring things like education infrastructure and many other things, and welfare of teachers, which should be its priority, not the age with which students get into school. Do you agree with that? And do you think that we have, I mean, I said this, maybe a day or so ago, that the reasons behind some of these regulations aren't necessarily data-driven. It's not like we've seen, data to show that there is a national crisis with underage students getting into universities and that must stop because, of one issue or the other. There's no data to show any of that. It's really just, a reason based on, okay, these are the best practices, so let's stick with it. So the NUT's reason about the government focusing on the minor things, do you agree with that? And, would you like that we have better explanations for these things before we make them, regulations?
Yes, I agree with NUT. I stand by that. There are many more things for us to look into. If you remember, like you said, data. For example, over 1.9 million people sat for JAM, and the university system probably cannot even admit up to half of that number. So I think that there are priorities that we need to get right. And we begin to look at it from the angle of, is it just sentimental reasons? We've heard people say that, well, children get into university and because of using of substance, some of them get manipulated and all those things. These are the reasons. But if you think about it, I think that by the time we begin to see the fallout of these policies, then we will realize that we're taking the wrong steps. We're already having issues where there's a huge exodus, where people are pursuing academic pursuits outside Nigeria, within West African region. People are going to Togo, people are going to Ghana. And I think that we'll see a surge because those people are not going to put a peg, and nobody would wait for 2 years if their children are 16 to turn 18 and just stay at home, because there's really nothing to do. We're not running a 24-hour economy. And these are factors that might be limiting people. So I think that I stand with NUT.
I completely agree with you. We'll start to see a mass exodus of young people who would go abroad to study. And when they study, you can't ask them to come back. There's going to be an increase in brain drain. Parents are going to keep looking for FX to pay for school fees in dollars, and it's going to keep getting worse if nothing is done about it. So with the pushback that we're seeing with, from the National Union of Teachers, from parents, do you think that the Minister of Education would listen to this and maybe take a different turn? And if they don't take a different turn, what do you think it says about this administration?
Well, the numbers don't lie. By the time we begin to see it, it's just that their response might be too late. The degree of responsiveness for government and government institution really needs to be addressed at this time around. And if they don't, we will see our government not being inclusive, not being fast or fact-driven, as the case may be. So I think the buck stops on the minister's table to rethink this before we get into a place and position where we might not really like. Because what will happen is we'll have a lot of value erosion because people start falsifying things. You start seeing affidavits of different kinds. These are things that will happen.
Rotimi Eyitayo, CEO of Team Masters Limited, thank you very much for your time with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.